got my tea. I'm actually sat underneath my Christmas tree, which you can't see, but it's above you. It's there. So it's Christmas Eve, and I've just finished wrapping all my presents, and I'm doing a bit of housework. My dad's making soup, so I thought I'd take this moment. We're both taking a break, having a cup of tea, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna just quickly film a book review for a book I just finished the other day. It took me 2 days to read it, and so it's all pretty fresh in my mind. I say that now, wait and see, I'll forget literally everything about it. But the book's called Cuckoo, and it's by Sophie Draper. I picked this up for about £2 on Amazon a while back, and to be honest, I think I picked it up because at the time I was buying a bunch of books off Amazon. They were all for £2. They're all by the same publishing company called Avon, and with Amazon in the UK, if you spend £10 on books, you get free delivery. So I think I had a few. I had one that I wanted, and then a couple more that looked interesting, and then I was looking for something else, and it was just £2, so I picked this one up as well. It interested me a little bit. The summary, I was like, it sounds okay. I was unsure about it though going into it, so I'll read you the back of what it says, and you can make your own mind up what you think. She's not your mother. When her stepmother dies unexpectedly, Carol returns to her childhood home in Derbyshire. Although she hasn't seen Elizabeth in years, the remote farmhouse offers refuge from a bad relationship and a chance to start again. But going through Elizabeth's belongings unearths I cannot speak today. But going through Elizabeth's belongings unearths memories Carol would rather stay buried. In particular, a story her stepmother would taunt her with about two little girls and the terrible thing they do. As heavy snow traps Carol in the village, where her neighbours stare and whisper, she is forced to question why Elizabeth hated her so much and what she was hiding. But does Carol really want to uncover the truth? So I just finished reading The Fellowship of the Ring by Tolkien. I have the whole box set, so I was gonna just keep going with them, but then I figured, you know what, I'm gonna take a break from fantasy and I'm gonna read something else just before it gets too Christmassy. And this is actually based in December time, so I figured, you know what, I didn't realise that going into it, but I should have realised when it said about snow. But it's actually based over Christmas, but it's not a Christmassy book, obviously. So I rolled with it, and it was okay. So I think I gave it about 4 out of 5. Because I read it over the course of 2 days, I think I read about 100, it's 200 or is it 300? It is 386 pages long. I think I read about 150 pages the first day, and then I read a lot the second day, and I finished it that night. I think I stayed up to like 2:30 in the morning finishing it, but I was trying to find a good place to stop, but everything was just kind of happening, so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna keep going. So our main character is Caroline, who likes to be known as Caro. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Caro. I can't think of another way it's going to be spelled. And she's an illustrator. She lives in London. And after the death of her stepmother, she sees her sister for the first time in about, I can't remember how many years it is. Is it 9 years? I know that her sister took off when she was 16, and I think Carol was 9 at the time, and she hasn't seen her sister since she took off, and they kind of lost touch. But this is her first time seeing her sister. She sees her again at the funeral, Elizabeth's funeral, and the lawyer's kind of talking to them about how the house is left to them because their father, who had passed away years ago when they were children, had entrusted that the house was left to the kids, but Elizabeth was allowed to live in it until she passed. So Steph claims to live a flashy life in America. I think she's in New York. And she says to Carol, you can have the house. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to go back there. I don't want to be stuck here. Everything is yours. So Carol, who is a bit down on her luck, I would say, she just got out of a bad relationship with an abusive, controlling partner. She's an illustrator, and I think she does okay with that. But she currently doesn't have anywhere to stay because she'd been living with her boyfriend Paul, and after her friend Harriet convinced her to leave him, Harriet said, "You can live at my flat." Harriet, though, was moving to Berlin around the time that all this was kicking off, so she had like a couple of weeks left lease on her flat, so she said that Carol could stay at her flat until she found her own place. So that is where Carol is currently living when she decides to take up the offer and move into Elizabeth's, or I should say her childhood home. It's often hinted throughout that Elizabeth did not like Carol one bit. She was like an evil stepmother. She taunted her, she wasn't very nice to her, and I kept talking about this nursery rhyme type thing that she used to say. Carol gets commissioned by her agent to do illustrations for like a kind of fairy tale book, and it's called The Pear Drum and Other Dark Tales from the Nursery. And throughout the book we kind of get several stories as she's doing drawings for these illustrations for the book. As she's doing drawings for these like fairy tales, you find out what the fairy tale is about, and I thought they were real. I thought they were real fairy tales that I just never heard of, but I don't think they are. I think the author made them up. One big key feature is the story of the pear drum, and I had no idea what a pear drum was, so I had to Google it. And it's a kind of weird kind of musical instrument. I forgot what the real name of it, or what another name is. Is it organ something. I can't remember, but I had to Google what this pear drum was because Elizabeth had a pear drum, but she also taunted the children with this story of the pear drum. So Carol moves into the house. She's a little bit unnerved by it, as anyone would be that moves into like a big house on their own. She meets her neighbour Craig, who's like just a couple of minutes down the road, and he actually lives in a cottage. The cottage is owned by Elizabeth, or by the family, so he comes down to the house quite a bit and kind of helps. And Carol, he brings a delivery of logs. So right from the start, when Carol goes, I think she goes shopping in town, it's very evident that the people in the town don't like her, or they remember her as a child, and they talk about her and they give her dirty looks, and we eventually find out why the town actually treats her like that. I will be honest, the whole aspect of as heavy snow traps Carol in the village, where her neighbours stare and whisper, she was forced to question why Elizabeth hated her so much and what she was hiding. Yeah, it snows, and it snows heavily, but Carol doesn't leave her house. Like, I think it's because she's up in like a kind of farmhouse that's out of town a wee bit, and the road doesn't get cleared, so she doesn't leave. She has like plenty of food in her fridge kind of thing. Her car is kind of like trapped in the driveway, so she's not about to drive down a snow covered road. And I don't remember her making any comment about making her way into the village, so the only person she really speaks to is Craig during the snowfall. So it's not as sinister as I thought it was going to be. The neighbours stare and whisper, yeah, she's forced to question why Elizabeth hated her so much. We learn why eventually. I don't know, I mean, the more I think about it after I finished it, I'm a little unsure whether or not I would give it 4 stars out of 5. I'd maybe actually give it 3, because I was reading a few reviews and some people complained about how slow paced it was, but to be honest, I was quite interested from the start, so I was able to read it. I read it relatively quickly. I was flying through the pages, so maybe that's why, if it had a slow pace, it didn't bother me, I didn't notice. I was quite interested by it. I actually had a theory, like, while Cara's living in the house, a few things start happening, a few kind of questionable things, and my first thought, or my first theory, I'm not going to say out loud what it is because it will spoil the book, but I had this thought that came into my head, thinking, I betcha it's going to be blank. Only because a book that I'd read a few months back I'm not going to name the title of it because somebody could connect the dots. But a book that I'd read a few months back had the same kind of premise of somebody in their house and they felt like there was not an intruder, but it felt like somebody was messing with them. Somebody was moving stuff and taking things and breaking things, a lot of different things. The person who it turned out to be, I can't remember if I saw it coming or not. I think I kind of had the idea, but once it was kind of revealed and you were kind of like, oh my god, can't believe that. So because I'd read that book and so that kind of storyline was a thing in my mind, when I then read this book, I was like, I had the same thought, if it was going to be the same premise, same kind of conclusion, and it actually kind of was. So one thing I have noticed, and I don't know if it's from reading a lot more lately, I am getting quite smart when it comes to books. I'm actually getting a lot better at picking up on who the killer's going to be, who the stalker or whatever has happened. I'm getting a lot better at working it out. Must just be getting smarter. There's a bit of romance between Craigie boy, and Cara that I don't know, was it quite quick? All romance to me in books is quite quick, to be honest. If they get together within the first 100 pages, I'm a bit kind of, I don't know. I think my issue is these days every book seems to have some sort of romance thrown in. Like, you can't just have a story. Same with the book I'm reading right now. I'm reading this book called Next Girl to Die, and I'm probably going to do a review on it. But it started off that these two characters clashed, and all of a sudden they've done a massive U-turn, and I don't know, she fancies him. So I don't know. I'm unless I'm reading a romance book, I'm not really interested in it. And if it takes over, ooh, that gets me riled. But it wasn't too bad. And in a way, the way it ended, I was a bit kind of like, when it did start to kind of all come out, I felt like our main character, Carol, was a bit thick. For example, at one point, she discovers a body. A body. Is it a quarry? I can't remember. But she discovers a body. And when she's over, kind of like, because she sees just a biker helmet. I was so worried at first when I first read that she saw a helmet on the ground. I was like, oh my god, is there going to be a head inside it? Already I've been talking for too much and my dad's back to making soup, so I'm going to try and wrap this up as quick as I can. So at one point Carol finds a body, and it turns out to be somebody that she didn't get on with in the village. Surprise, surprise, she doesn't get on with anybody. And one thing that happened while she's like over inspecting the body, like I was saying about the helmet, it's the way it was described about being a helmet in the ground. So I was just picturing this helmet on its own, and then they went over and someone made a comment about the body that was attached to it, and I was like, oh my god. But the body was like hidden because of a rock. This helmet was beside a rock. But I genuinely thought it was going to be something like she picked up the helmet and like a head was inside. Could you imagine? So she finds this body, and it's somebody she didn't get on with, and she falls to her knees. And when she falls to her knees, she feels something stab into her leg, and she picks it up, and it's her house key, and she just sticks it in her pocket thinking it's hers. Flash forward, she's spoken to the police, and when she gets back home and everything, she realises it's not her house key, because her house key is hanging up, which I don't understand why her house key would be hanging up, because surely she would have her house key on her if she was out and about and the house would be locked. And then the sentence it went something along the lines of how she'd unknowingly taken evidence from a crime scene, and then something about how it's not like she could give it back now. And I was like, are you joking? Are you winding me up? Is this a joke? Are you taking the piss? Are you being serious? Maybe it's just because I'm a do-gooder. I feel like if I was ever caught up in anything to do with the law, honesty is the best policy. That's just always been my attitude. I've never been in trouble though with anything like that, so I mean, I don't know what it is actually like, I mean, to be honest, but I always just feel like whenever I watch like murder shows or whatever, crime shows, and whenever people are like lying to the police for whatever reason, I always kind of grimace a wee bit because I just feel like I'd be telling the truth. I mean, yeah, they might not believe you and try to pin the murder on you, but I'm just a firm believer in just telling the truth. Certain situations maybe call for a little lie, but the sheer fact that, like, she thought it was her house key, so she picked it up. So I feel like she could go to the police now and say, so I picked this up at the scene because I thought it was mine, because it looks exactly like mine. I thought it was just my key. But I realised once I got home that it's not, because my key's hanging up. You held on to that evidence, and it was important evidence, Carol. It was very important. And then even after a while, she makes a few revelations about certain people, and I don't know. And then other stuff keeps happening at one point, and you know something's about to go down. And by this point, I knew. I feel like I'd have been on the phone to the police. She loses her phone at one point as well. She's out on a nature trail or whatever to get some inspiration. She falls in water because she's useless. And she drops her phone in the water, and that's quite a few, or about a month or so. I think this whole thing actually takes course over a month, maybe 2. No, it's definitely just January by the end of it. It's the end of January by the end of it. So she loses her phone, and she doesn't bother to get a new one. Now, I know some people can live without their mobile phones. I admire people that do. I try to go without my phone sometimes, but I always have it on me. You never know when there could be an emergency when you need to get in contact with somebody. So, I feel like phones are important. Maybe we do spend too much time on them, but they are important. It's a way of contacting if you need help. So this girl doesn't even have a phone. The whole ending could have been solved by a quick call to the police. The police. Good God. But no, the key thing was the one thing that bugged me the most. I just feel it's one of those things that I hate it enough sometimes if one character says, look, we can't go to the police, you can't tell the police that, they'll think it was us, kind of thing. That is fair enough. It bugs me sometimes, but I get it. I sort of get it. But this whole thing with the key, I was like, you could have just given it. That would have helped. So there's that. I did kind of go a bit crazy by the end, I will be honest. It was a bit kind of crazy by the end, the way everything was kind of coming out and different things, and once I finished it, because of the last chapter, the very first chapter, I was told from a different perspective, and I was a bit confused by it, because my first thought was, is this Elizabeth? Is this Elizabeth lying in her hospital bed? Because it's in a hospital bed, and they're talking about how, like, everyone thinks they're dead or whatever, or they think I can't hear, stuff like that. So I don't know if they're in a coma. Going on about how other people can't hear, but they can hear everything, and like I'm still here kind of thing. And it mentions the prayer drum, and so there was that. And I thought it was Elizabeth. Then they said that Elizabeth had died instantly because she tripped over the banister. So they said that she'd like died instantly. So I thought, well, it's not going to be her. She's not going to be lying in a hospital bed hooked up to stuff. So that kind of confused me, but then by the end chapter you realise like who it is and what it is. And that last chapter was told, you know, they're in a hospital bed and they're talking about different things, and one character saying one thing, one character saying another, and I was left feeling very, very unsatisfied. I don't know if the author intended it for it to be a bit kind of cliffhanger-ish. In my mind, I didn't like it. I just didn't like it. I love everything maybe neatly wrapped up in a bow. Sometimes you could have a bit of an unhappy ending, but the way this was done, I didn't like it. One character is talking about another character's involvement, and I just feel like they're basically calling them out for being dangerous, I'll say. And it's like, what? Is this a psychopath? I don't know, it's hard to explain this without actually spoiling anything. I don't want to spoil it, but apart from that, it was a pretty good book. I will admit. I was kind of interested in the character of Carol. I was interested about why Elizabeth hated her. Was she just an evil stepmother? All this kind of stuff. I got a little bit confused at one point because one minute, oh no, I'm not going to talk about that either. Basically, it was just it got a bit complicated at one point, and then I was trying to work out, like, wait, are they sisters? Are they not? But it wasn't too bad. I did actually enjoy it. I enjoyed the suspense. you were kind of interested in what was going on. I never trusted that Craig. I didn't like him. And I didn't like the way that, to begin with, this is what I hate with books, when they start off with a character like Carol, who, after being in her past relationship with Paul, she was very cautious and she treated Craig very coldly because she didn't trust men or something. And then in like about 30 pages later, she proper fancies him, and then she's going on and on about like her life and wanting a life with Craig, and it's like, wait a minute, you only known each other for a month. It's only been a month. This whole thing took place in December and a little bit of January. I really struggle with romance these days. I don't know what is wrong with me. I think what happens with me though is if I'm reading a book, I'm reading it based on what I've read in the back. And if maybe romance is thrown in, if it's good enough, if it's maybe something that takes course over like the whole book, so it's like, it's not like, I read Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine, and I absolutely loved the relationship she had with, oh my god, I forgot his name. I want to call him Reginald, but that's not it. In it, the character of Eleanor and a guy she worked with, but like the kind of friendship that they have had over like the course of the book was so cute, and by the end I was rooting for them. I was rooting for them to get together. That's the kind of romance that I love, is when it's just so, you've bonded with both characters and then you can see them kind of building a friendship, building up like a bit of romance or feelings for each other, and by the end when they do get together, I'm rooting for them 100%. But when it's thrown at you, or when two characters that start off hating each other and then they love each other, I'm not very good with that. And also as well, when I'm reading like mysteries and that, I just love reading a mystery for the sake of the mystery. I don't care about who you're in love with and who you want to shag. Just solve the case. So that's why at the moment I'm reading Next Girl to Die by D. I'm looking at the book right now. D. Poirier. Poirier. Poirier? I don't know. I'm gonna call her D. But I'm reading Next Girl to Die and I was really enjoying it to start with. But now it's kind of our character. Every time she's around this other character, she's just going on about all the intense sparks and how she feels when she's around him, and I just want him to take me right now. I just can't. I can't deal with it. I'm only 150 pages in. I'm not. You didn't like this character. You didn't like this boy to begin with. Why do you suddenly fancy him so much? He hasn't done anything, really, I would say, that makes him credible enough for you to suddenly fancy him. But yeah, so that was my review of Cuckoo. I don't know if I did it justice because I kind of got off on a bit of a tangent, but to be honest, I don't know what else there is to say. Sophie Drape here. But yeah, it was actually, I'd probably stick to my 4 out of 5 stars. Actually, maybe 3.5 to be honest. More 4 than 3, but it was just, I think I just struggled with it a little bit by the end, or certain things, but the fact that I read it in 2 nights, normally I don't do that with books, so yeah. So yeah, so I'm gonna go back to helping my dad make soup and then read some more of Next Girl to Die and put Cuckoo back on the shelf for life. Cuckoo by Sophie Drapier. Not the worst book I've ever read, and actually quite a good thriller. It's probably the first thriller in a while. It's proper kind of like, ooh, got me gripped. So yeah, it was pretty good actually. So yeah, Sophie Draper, Cuckoo. Goodbye.